dear listener, to Whispers of the Night. Tonight, I invite you into a story of quiet wonder. Beyond the silver spires of a lonely palace lies a hidden garden, where every leaf is made of glass and every flower glimmers with light. It is here that Princess Elara wanders, seeking not riches or crowns, but something gentler, the courage to touch what is fragile and to awaken beauty where silence once lived. As you listen, let the day fall away. Breathe softly and allow the stillness of night to settle around you. Now, let us walk together into the Princess and the Glass Garden. Now, let us pause before the story unfolds. Imagine yourself in the twilight of the garden, where the world slows to a gentle rhythm, where every breath of air carries a quiet hum. You are walking barefoot beside Elara. The ground beneath your feet is cool, smooth, and comforting. Above you, delicate branches stretch wide, each adorned with glass leaves that tinkle softly like distant wind chimes in a breeze you cannot feel. The flowers here do not wither, nor do they wilt. Instead, they shine with a subtle glow, as though each one remembers something, an echo of laughter, a spark of joy, a long-forgotten song. Their light does not demand your attention, but invites it, softly, kindly, as though whispering, "Stay, rest, be still." Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Notice how the shimmering petals respond, glowing a little brighter, as though breathing with you, in and out. With the world at rest, now imagine tiny luminous buds beginning to bloom all around you. Their spirals open slowly, releasing not fragrance, but gentle light, soft, golden, like lanterns drifting on water. Each one eases you deeper into calm, deeper into stillness. The air itself feels alive, yet hushed, as if it wants nothing more than for you to find peace here. Every reflection on the glass petals bends into subtle rainbows, reminding you that beauty is always near, even in silence. As you walk further, time loses its weight. There is no yesterday here, no tomorrow, only the gentle now, quiet unfolding of light, the hush of petals blooming, the hum of life felt more than heard. Let yourself sink fully into this calm. The garden holds you, the story holds you, and with each passing moment, your body grows lighter, your thoughts softer, your heart more at ease. You are ready now to follow Elara into the heart of the glass garden, where silence transforms into whispers and whispers into wonder. The Princess and the Glass Garden. The silent palace. You move through the palace slowly, your footsteps a whisper against polished stone floors. Each hall stretches long and silent, filled with the quiet resonance of centuries. The air is cool, carrying faint traces of lavender and aged wood, and every carved archway holds the memory of voices that once lingered here. You notice the way light bends against the silver spires outside the windows, falling in soft, angled lines that touch the edges of tapestries, gilded mirrors, and the faint dust motes floating in the sunbeams. Each beam of sunlight seems to hold a story, a fragment of time that wants to be remembered, and you follow them like gentle threads woven through the palace, each one guiding you deeper into the hush. Your fingers brush against the carved stone, tracing the delicate arabesques and spiral patterns that speak of hands long gone. There is a rhythm in the carvings, a subtle cadence that resonates under your touch, as if the palace itself hums a quiet song. It is a song of waiting, of patience, of days and nights passing without notice, each moment folding softly into the next. You listen, not with your ears, but with the gentle awareness of being fully present. Even the faint creak of a door, the soft sigh of wind through a distant window, feels like a voice, a gentle reminder that life has flowed here before and will again, in ways you are only beginning to sense. You pause in a corridor that stretches endlessly to the north, and you realize that silence itself is not emptiness. It is a living thing, subtle and profound, curling around the edges of your thoughts. You breathe slowly, feeling the air expand in your chest and carry with it the faint scent of stone warmed by the morning sun. Somewhere nearby, a crystal chandelier trembles with a soft vibration, sending tiny specks of reflected light dancing across the marble floors. The patterns shift as your eyes follow them, tracing delicate arcs that remind you of constellations, of far-off galaxies turning slowly in the dark. There is a sense of vastness here, a reminder that even in stillness, motion exists. And even in quiet, life continues. As you move toward the courtyard, the walls open subtly, revealing the gentle curve of arches framed by climbing ivy. The courtyard lies bathed in morning light, soft and pale, filtering through the lattice of stonework above. You step carefully across the cool tiles, your shoes echoing faintly in the open space. At the center, a fountain stands, silent and still, its basin catching the light in pools that seem almost liquid glass. You lean forward slightly, seeing the reflection of the palace sky above, the shimmer of clouds, and the faintest trace of wind in the leaves. It feels alive, though nothing moves. There is anticipation in the air, a quiet expectation that something is waiting to be discovered. And then you see it, a flicker at the far edge of the courtyard. Sunlight catches something hidden among the ornamental hedges, a shimmer so delicate it could almost be imagined. You move closer, your steps slow and careful, as if the very act of approaching might disturb the fragile balance of light. The shimmer shifts, responding to your presence, a subtle invitation you cannot resist. You reach out, your hand trembling slightly, and feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, the cool stone under your fingertips. There is a gentle thrill in the recognition that this place, so silent and still, holds secrets, and that you, here and now, are on the threshold of their revelation. You pause again, noticing the details you might have missed before. Tiny veins in the leaves glint with dew that has caught the morning light. Shadows stretch lazily across the tiles, their edges soft and forgiving, blending into one another in a slow, quiet dance. The hedges themselves seem to lean slightly toward you, as though encouraging you to step further. You notice the way the air shifts ever so slightly, carrying a faint scent of jasmine, the hint of earth and stone, and the quiet, almost imperceptible hum that seems to emanate from the ground itself. The courtyard is not empty. It is awake in its own subtle way, alive with potential, waiting for the first ripple of interaction to awaken its deeper song. You reach out to touch the shimmer, and for a moment, the light bends and stretches beneath your fingers. It is not heat, not cold, but a presence, a gentle acknowledgement of your touch. The sensation is fleeting, like a breath held just beyond notice, and yet it leaves a trail of wonder in your mind. You step back slightly, allowing the shimmer to dance freely once more, and you realize that this is the beginning of something quiet, something fragile and beautiful. In this silent palace, you are not alone. There is a dialogue happening between you and the spaces around you, a conversation of light, air, and memory that requires no words at all. You take a slow, deep breath, letting the stillness fill your lungs, carrying the fragrance of stone and dew, of sunlight and faint shadow. Each exhale loosens the tension in your shoulders, letting your body relax into the rhythm of the palace itself. You notice the walls, how they curve gently toward one another. The ceilings high and forgiving, designed to cradle sound, to absorb and reflect, to preserve memory like a delicate echo in a cavern of stone. Even the distant bells, faintly ringing from the tower, are softened by the architecture, vibrating in a gentle pulse that feels like a heartbeat, steady and slow, lulling and sure. You are learning to listen differently now, to perceive the slow movement of the world around you, as it shifts imperceptibly toward something you cannot yet name. Time itself seems to stretch here, elongated by the quiet and the deliberate pace of your movements. You wander slowly, touching carved balustrades, pausing to notice the sunlight glinting off polished floors, the way dust motes float in lazy spirals, suspended by air currents you cannot see. You realize that observation itself is a kind of touch, that noticing is a form of connection, and that the palace is teaching you to attune to the smallest, subtlest details. You feel your awareness expand in rhythm with the courtyard, your mind softening into the gentle patterns of shadow and light. Each step, each breath, each heartbeat is mirrored in the quiet architecture around you, a reflection of your own slow awakening. The shimmer in the courtyard draws you finally to the center of the garden, where your gaze is caught by the faint glimmer of something crystalline among the paving stones. It is as if the sun itself has been caught in a delicate prism, waiting for your eyes to recognize it. You crouch slightly, feeling the cool stone beneath your palms, and allow yourself to linger in the sensation of stillness, of anticipation, of gentle wonder. There is a patience here, a quiet insistence that discovery need not be hurried, that beauty unfolds slowly, and that you, in your deliberate attention, are a part of this unfolding. The palace waits with you, its walls and corridors and spires, attuned to your quiet presence. You feel the faint pulse of life in the silent stone, a rhythm almost imperceptible, like the soft beating of a hidden heart. And as you lift your gaze toward the shimmering light, you know that this moment is the beginning of a gentle journey, one that will carry you beyond the palace walls, beyond the solitary corridors, into a garden of fragile, luminous wonders that seem to breathe with memory and light. You step forward slowly, guided by curiosity, and feel the first stirrings, a gentle promise that the stillness of this silent palace is only the beginning of a deeper, unfolding story. And as the sunlight bends across the courtyard one last time, casting long, languid shadows that stretch toward distant arches, you sense the quiet anticipation of the glass garden waiting just beyond, shimmering with stories yet untold. The shimmer lingers in the corner of your vision, gentle and insistent, hinting at a hidden garden where light and memory intertwine. And you step forward, curious and unhurried, ready to meet what waits beyond the palace walls. The glass garden. You step into the garden, and the air around you feels suddenly delicate, as though it too is made of glass. Each breath you take is light, translucent, carrying with it a faint echo, as if the very atmosphere is listening and answering back. In hushed tones, before you, the garden stretches in every direction, a place woven not from petals and leaves, but from fragile, shimmering forms that mimic them. Trees hold branches that glisten like spun crystal. Blossoms curl open with edges, thin as frost. Even the grass beneath your feet is a carpet of fine glass blades, soft in appearance, yet ringing faintly when brushed together, like wind chimes in miniature. It is beautiful, yet strange, for here, nature has taken on the shape of artifice, and artifice has become nature. There are no birds nesting in the branches, no bees humming about the blossoms, no animals burrowing among the roots. All that greets you is light, bending, splitting, and scattering in 1,000 directions, as though the garden is forever caught in dawn. With every step, you notice the world fracturing into rainbows. The crystals hanging like dew transform simple beams into luminous threads, weaving the air with prismatic strands. You pause to watch how a single droplet-shaped crystal bends sunlight into a ribbon. Its surface is not flat, but curved, and in that curve, the light stretches, divides, and reforms into bands of color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, a spectrum hidden inside a ray, revealed only when coaxed. You realize you are standing within the secret language of light itself. The garden is a gallery of prisms. Each leaf is an experiment, each petal a lens. Some bend light sharply, scattering it across the path. Others let it pass, but slow it down, refracting the world into distorted shapes. When you move your hand through the air, the light around it warps, as if even your shadow is being stretched and tested. You are not merely a visitor in this place. Sayo are part of its experiment. The air hums, as if to affirm your thought. The hum is not mechanical, nor is it the wind. It is resonance, the faint sound of matter vibrating, as though every piece of glass is alive with song. You lean close to a crystal hanging from a branch and tap it gently. It rings, soft and high, a bell-like tone that lingers. Then, as if awakened, the other crystals answer back, chiming in quiet succession, until the whole garden seems to sing to itself. You listen. It is not a melody in the human sense, yet it is patterned, structured. Each resonance depends on the thickness, the length, the shape of the crystal. Longer ones hum deeper, smaller ones trill at a higher pitch. You are reminded of instruments, flutes, violins, harpsichord, hidden in plain sight, tuned not by strings or hands, but by the geometry of glass itself. Here, science and song intertwine, for sound, like light, is simply vibration, waves moving through air and matter. The garden is a cathedral of resonance, where each note proves the truth of the world, that every material sings when struck, that every structure holds a voice. Even silence, here, is only waiting to be touched into sound. You kneel to study a flower sculpted from glass, its petals thin as dragonfly wings. Within it, the light bends in unusual ways, forming rings of brightness and darkness, as though the flower is painting shadows within itself. You recall the word interference. When two waves of light meet, they do not cancel or collide, but weave together, forming patterns of brightness where peaks align, and patterns of darkness where valleys cross. Each petal is a canvas for this delicate weaving, proof of how the invisible dance of photons can shape what you see. It is a thought that settles you deeper into stillness. For just as these petals reveal hidden orders, so too does your mind. You begin to notice that every surface in the garden is both mirror and window. Some reflect you back, fractured and multiplied, as though reminding you that you are not one, but many reflections. Others let you peer through, refracting the world into softer, dreamlike shapes. Here, glass teaches you about perception. Nothing you see is fixed. That all vision is only a negotiation between light and matter. The loneliness of the garden grows clearer. Its silence is not emptiness, but potential, waiting for an observer to coax out resonance and color. You realize that, without you, the prisms remain unbent, the crystals unsung. Glass itself is patient. It can wait centuries, millennia, without shifting, formed from sand heated to liquid, and cooled too quickly to crystallize. It holds within it the paradox of time, solid, yet not truly settled, a frozen liquid, paused in transformation. You feel, for a moment, the weight of that patience pressing softly against your skin. You wander deeper, and the structures change. Trees of glass give way to towering spires, like frozen fountains mid-splash. Pools shimmer like molten silver, their surfaces hard, yet shining as if stirred by invisible currents. You reach down, pressing a finger against one, and feel the cool solidity. Yet the reflection ripples not from your touch, but from the play of light. What appears to move is only the bending of color. It is illusion, a gentle trick of optics, and you smile at its softness. Here, the garden speaks in metaphors of science. Refraction becomes a reminder that direction can change, while essence remains. Resonance becomes the truth that every form carries its own song. Interference becomes the lesson that even opposites weave beauty when they meet. The silence of the place is not absence, but invitation to slow, to listen, to notice. You sit upon a bench of crystal, your body reflected 100 times in its surface. As you breathe, the light shifts with you, casting different rainbows with every rise and fall of your chest. You feel, perhaps for the first time, that you are part of the equation, that the garden's colors exist only because you are here to see them. Without an eye, there is no rainbow. Without an ear, no resonance. Without a heart, no beauty. You are not separate from this place, but its missing element, the piece that allows it to be whole. Time feels soft here. Minutes could be hours, or hours minutes. Glass does not mark time as wood or stone does it. Neither burns nor erodes in the same way. It remembers differently, holding shapes for centuries, fragile yet enduring. You think of the first humans who discovered it by accident, perhaps when lightning struck sand, fusing grains into a shard. From there, the long history unfolded. Glass beads, glass vessels, windows, telescopes, microscopes, each one a step in revealing what was hidden, each one turning light into knowledge. The garden, you realize, is not just an artwork, but an archive. It contains within its shimmering walls the story of humanity's gaze. How we have always sought to capture light and make it speak. The hum returns, low and steady, as though the garden is breathing with you. Perhaps it has been breathing all along, and only now do you notice. You close your eyes, letting the colors fade into darkness. But the hum remains, a vibration not of sound alone, but of presence. It is as if the garden is whispering, not with words, but with resonances, that beauty is not in being seen, but in being understood. When you open your eyes, the glass blooms glow faintly, catching a softer, bluer light. The day is dimming, or perhaps the garden is shifting into another phase of itself. You feel that it has more to reveal if you are willing to linger. Beyond the last row of crystalline trees, you glimpse something new, a faint flicker, as though the glass is beginning to burn with an inner fire, not borrowed from the sun, but born from within. And you wonder what happens when glass learns not only to bend light, but to hold it. Beyond the glass trees, the faint glow deepens, like embers awakening in crystal veins, a promise that the garden is not only about reflection, but also about fire, waiting to be kindled in the next chapter. The first bloom, you reach out with gentle fingers, hesitant at first, as though the petal before you might shatter at the slightest touch. Its surface is cool, smooth, almost slippery, like the skin of water caught in frozen form. Yet, when you brush it lightly, it quivers, and with that trembling light ripples outward. A rainbow dances across your skin, delicate and soft, as if the glass flower has been waiting for you. The colors shift and scatter, painting your cheeks, your hands, even the air around you, with fragments of the hidden spectrum. For a moment, the garden holds its breath. Then, slowly, something changes. The stillness is broken by a glow. One by one, tiny buds along the branches begin to stir, as though woken from a long and patient sleep. They swell gently, glassy shells trembling, until they unfurl in spirals of radiance, not in a rush, but with the slow dignity of dawn. Each bloom sends another ripple of color into the air, until you are surrounded by light unfolding in silence. You watch as the garden begins to bloom for you. A realization takes root inside you. Your presence here has unlocked this awakening. The flowers respond not to time nor to season, but to attention. The act of noticing is what stirs them into life. In that you feel a kinshipfer. Do you not also blossom when seen, when understood, when gently touched by care? The air shimmers with shifting colors, and you begin to wander among the awakening blossoms. Each one is unique in shape, size, and hue. Some open like tiny spirals of glass, glowing softly at their edges. Others stretch upward, long and narrow, catching light like flutes of crystal. Some remain half-closed, their glow hesitant, as if shy in the presence of the observer. The garden feels alive in a new way, no longer a still archive of prisms, but a breathing system of light. You lean close to one bloom, and you see something remarkable. Within its translucent petals, patterns, swirl spirals, rings, and branching shapes etched faintly into the glass. They remind you of the lines of a fingerprint or the veins of a leaf, patterns that feel at once organic and mathematical. You recall how nature writes itself in these designs, spirals of galaxies echoing spirals of seashells, branching rivers echoing branching trees. The bloom is not random. It carries within it the geometry of the world, preserved and refracted in fragile form. The thought lingers. Glass is a memory keeper. It is not merely a vessel, but a witness. Ancient beads of glass, buried in sand, are dug up centuries later, still gleaming with color. A shard of obsidian, natural volcanic glass, carries the mark of fire that shaped it thousands of years ago. Even in its silence, glass remembers. These blossoms to hold memorionot of years passing, but of moments waiting. Perhaps every petal you see has held onto the laughter of storms, or the stillness of dawn, or the joy of being touched by a curious hand for the first time. As you move deeper, you begin to notice something strange. Each flower blooms differently, depending on how you approach it. When you lean in with steady breath and patient heart, the glow is warm, steady, almost golden. When your hand trembles with excitement, the bloom flickers like a candle in the wind. The flowers are mirrors of presence, reflecting back your own state of being. You think of how plants in the real world respond. Sunflowers turn their faces to follow the sun, how blossoms close at night, how seeds wait for rain. Even in the realm of glass, this truth remains. Life listens. The science whispers through your thoughts like a lullaby. Real plants sense the world in ways subtle and unseen. Roots grow toward the sound of running water, leaves shift in response to gentle touch. A tree can distinguish between the weight of rain and the crawl of an insect. In the hidden rhythms of biology, every living thing responds, adjusts, and remembers. And so, here, these glass flowers respond not to wind or weather, but to you tow the warmth of your attention, to the patience of your waiting. The realization softens you. You breathe more slowly. You step more gently. You begin to see not just a garden of light, but a conversation unfolding. Each bloom is a reply, a luminous response to your presence. The silence is no longer lonely, it is attentive, listening. You are no longer wandering through a museum of fragile beauty. You are part of a dialogue, woven with prisms and petals. As you trace the glowing spirals, you notice another rhythm emerging. Some blossoms pulse faintly, dimming and brightening as though breathing. The rhythm is not hurried, but slow, deliberate. You match your own breath to it, inhaling as the bloom brightens, exhaling as it softens. Soon, your body falls into the same cadence, breath and bloom entwined. You wonder if this is the secret the garden has been holding all along, not simply to show beauty, but to teach rhythm, the art of aligning with what surrounds you. You linger at one blossom that glows with a deeper hue, a kind of soft indigo light. Inside its petals, you see faint lines of interferential bands of brightness and shadow crossing each other like woven cloth. You remember how light behaves as both wave and particle, how it can spread and overlap, creating patterns invisible until revealed on the right surface. The flower is not only an ornament of beauty, but a living lesson, showing you how nature's dualities coexist. Even the smallest shimmer carries the mystery of the cosmos within it. Hours slip by, though you do not feel them passing. The garden's bloom unfolds at its own pace, and you surrender to it, letting time dissolve. You imagine that if you left and returned tomorrow, the blooms would close again, waiting for your touch to awaken them. Their rhythm is not bound to clocks, but to presence, just as wonder itself is. Sitting down among them, you close your eyes. The glow persists behind your eyelids, faint colors drifting in the dark. The hum of resonance continues, weaving with your breath. In this stillness, you feel your heart soften. Just as the garden blooms in response to your presence, so too does something within you. Open quite fragile, luminous dot. When at last you open your eyes, the garden is transformed. It is no longer static glass, but a living constellation of light. Each bloom shining with memory, each petal holding reflection. And at the edge of it all, you notice a faint warmth. The glass does not only refract it, seems to hold a glow of its own now, as though fire has awakened within the crystal veins. And you wonder, with a quiet thrill, what happens when the garden not only blooms, but begins to burn with inner light. At the farthest edge of the blooming garden, a flicker of warmth shimmers in the glass, a hint of fire waiting to be born, carrying you softly toward the next mystery. whispering light. Twilight settles gently over the glass garden, softening every edge, dimming every reflection. The brightness of day fades into a quieter palette, yet the blooms do not fall dark. Instead, they begin to shimmer with a subtler glow, as though the light they once borrowed from the sun is now their own to give. You pause among them, noticing how shadows deepen, yet colors grow more vivid. The violet of one blossom glows richer in dusk than in noon, while a pale gold flower seems to carry its own ember within. It is then you hear it at first. You think it is windthow. No wind stirs here. A faint vibration seems to weave through the glass stems and petals. Not the bright chime of crystal struck, but something softer, lower, like the hush of a voice spoken through cupped hands. You tilt your head, listening, and realize it is not one voice, but many. The entire garden seems to murmur. The whispers are made not of words, but of light. As the blooms pulse with their glow, patterns flicker across the air shapes, colors, slow dances of shifting radiance. You watch, mesmerized, as one petal stretches a ribbon of brightness into the air, projecting it like a beam upon the crystalline path. The beam bends against another bloom, and in that meeting, an image forms. It is faint at first, wavering like smoke, but then steadier. The outline of a tree, its branches swaying, though no wind moves. A memory carved in light. You follow the beam to another bloom, which paints a different scene. Waves lapping against a shore, their rhythm gentle and endless. The water is not real, yet you feel it all the same. The rise and fall, the hush of retreating foam. The garden is no longer a still place of prisms, but a gallery of stories, woven in light and reflection. You begin to realize the science behind the wonder. Glass, after all, has always been a keeper of light. In the world beyond dreams, artisans have trapped color within stained windows, turning sunlight into story. Photographers once burned images onto glass plates, capturing fleeting moments of history. Even now, light etched into fiber optics carries voices across oceans, whispers across the world. Glass is memory's ally, and here, in this garden, it remembers not just facts, but feelings. The blossoms, before you flicker again, shifting their stories. One shows a circle of people gathered around firelight, their laughter moving like sparks. Another projects the faint curve of a face, eyes closed in thought, a memory of tenderness. You cannot hear their voices, yet somehow you sense them. The light carries emotion, a resonance, not in sound, but in the way your chest stirs as you watch. You step slowly, reverently, through this theater of memory. Each flower you pass offers a fragment. Together, they weave a chorus, scenes of joy, scenes of grief, even quiet scenes of waiting. A photon from a distant star may travel for thousands of years before reaching your eyes, telling you of a fire that burned long ago. The very starlight that brushes your skin tonight might have begun its journey when civilizations were young. To look is to listen across centuries. Every bloom reflects not only what it is, but what it has known. The hum you heard earlier is more than resonance, it is remembrance, vibration woven with memory. You kneel near a blossom that shines with a deep blue glow. Its light dances across the surface of another petal, and together they create an image of rainfall. The drops are perfect spheres of light, falling in silence, vanishing before they touch the ground. You feel the memory of rain as if it were your own, the coolness, the hush, the cleansing weight of it. And you remember, water, too, is a memory keeper. Every river is carved by the story of its floods, every stone polished by the touch of waves. The bloom reminds you of Thishao. The world itself remembers, quietly, patiently, in the patterns it leaves behind. Your breath slows as you continue. You notice that the whispers of light are not chaotic, but rhythmic, weaving like music into one another. This one brightens as that one dims. This one bends as that one straightens, creating a slow dance of balance. Interference, the science of overlapping waves, shows itself in delicate grace. Where two beams cross, they form shadows of absence and crescents of brilliance. You think of how even silence in music is part of the song, how memory itself has both brightness and shadow, and so you begin to listen differently. You stop trying to name each image, to hold each story. Instead, you let the garden flow through you, light flickering across your skin, across your thoughts, like waves lapping at a shore you do not need to measure. The whispers are not meant to be captured, they are meant to be felt. As you surrender, you notice your own memories beginning to stir. The glow of one blossom calls forth a memory of your childhood laughter under summer skies. Another flicker stirs a gentler ache, the remembrance of a goodbye. You realize the garden is not only showing its own stories, but inviting yours to bloom alongside them. The glass is a mirror as much as a lantern. It teaches you that memory is not fixed in stone, but alive, refracted, glowing differently depending on how it is seen. The twilight deepens, and the garden glows brighter, more insistent. You feel surrounded, not by objects, but by presences, whispers, that rise and fall like breathing. Each blossom is a storyteller, but none louder than the others. Together, they weave something greater, the truth that beauty is not only what you see, but what you carry, what you feel echo inside yourself. You sit at the center of the path, eyes wide yet heavy with calm. The air hums softly, and the light flickers against your skin like gentle hands. You think of how the human brain itself is a garden of light. Each neuron firing is a spark, a flicker, a glow. Together, billions of them whisper your own story, weaving memory with the same rhythm, the same fragile brilliance. To sit here is to sit within yourself, surrounded by the truth that you, too, are a keeper of light. Slowly, the whispers begin to fade, not all at once, but gradually, like the closing of a book. The blooms soften their glow, and the stories dissolve back into color. You sense no sadness in this fading, only the rhythm of things. For memory is not meant to be held forever In the open, it rests, it waits, and when called upon, it shines again. You rise gently, carrying the hum within you. The garden does not feel lonely anymore. Its silence is full. Its whispers still echo behind your thoughts. You step toward the edge of the path, and there beyond the fading blooms see a new shimmer. Not the soft play of light upon glass, but something brighter, sharper. It flickers like a hidden flame, alive with warmth, and you wonder, softly, what happens when light ceases to whisper and begins instead to burn. Beyond the glowing petals, a spark whets a fire, kindling in silence, ready to show you another face of light. The guardian of glass. You walk quietly among the crystal flowers, each petal gleaming like a frozen droplet of dawn. The air is still, hushed in a way that feels almost expectant, as though the garden itself is holding its breath. In the hush, you notice something stirring, not in the flowers themselves, but in the space between them, as though the glow of their glassy petals is gathering into form. Slowly, a figure takes shape, delicate, luminous, both bird and spirit, both creature and dream. Its wings are made of prisms, fragile yet strong, and every movement scatters rainbows across the garden floor. You pause, not afraid, only deeply quiet, as if your stillness allows it to remain. The creature does not speak with words. Instead, it communicates through the soft shimmer of its wings, through the way the colors bend and ripple. Each flicker of light feels like a gesture, a suggestion, a gentle invitation. It turns, wings, arching toward the center of the garden, where one flower remains unopened. Unlike the others, which breathe in hues of silver and lavender, this one is heavy with mystery, its petals folded tightly, holding something within. You follow the guardian of glass. With each step, you sense a connection between the creature and the world it tends. The prisms of its wings remind you of how light behaves when it meets glass or water. White light, seemingly plain, holds within it every possible color, waiting only for the right surface to reveal its secret. You recall how Isaac Newton, centuries ago, passed a beam of sunlight through a simple prism and discovered that light itself is not singular, but many. The guardian, with its rainbow-swept wings, feels like the living memory of that truth. When you stand before the unopened flower, the air seems warmer. The guardian hovers close, tilting its head in a motion that feels almost human, almost kind. You extend your hand, fingertips brushing the smooth, glass-like petal. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the petal trembles, as though awakened by your touch. Slowly, it shatters, not violently, but with a quiet sigh, breaking into thousands of glittering fragments that rise into the air. They float like fireflies, each carrying a faint glimmer of laughter, of memory, of warmth. The garden brightens. The crystal flowers no longer feel frozen in their beauty. They seem alive, softened by the release. and the palace that surrounds. The garden, its distant walls, once heavy with silence, seem warmer, as though they too have been touched by the scattering of light. You breathe deeply, and in that breath you sense the science beneath the wonder. The bloom you touched, like all glass, was not truly solid in the way stone is solid. Glass is a paradox, rigid yet fragile, ordered yet fluid. Scientists describe it as an amorphous solid, a substance where atoms are frozen in place, like dancers who never completed their step. It is neither fully liquid nor fully crystal, but something in between, forever unresolved. The bloom's shattering feels like the natural expression of that truth. Glass breaks not because it is weak, but because its strength is locked into tension, waiting for a single touch to release it. The guardian circles you, wings scattering fragments of color across your face and hands. You realize that prisms, flowers, even the guardian itself are all ways of showing how light and glass share a secret intimacy. When light meets glass, it bends. Scientists call this refraction. You may remember the way a straw in a glass of water seems broken, shifted at an angle. It is not truly brokenly bent by the slowing of light as it moves from one medium to another. That slowing, that bending, is what makes rainbows possible, what allows lenses to magnify, what gives telescopes and microscopes the power to extend human vision beyond its natural limits. The unopened bloom, now scattered, seems to embody this gift, the idea that something hidden can be revealed, something folded in silence can be spread into color. The laughter released feels like light itself, once invisible, now seen in all its shades. You sit for a while in the center of the garden, surrounded by fragments of glowing glass that drift like petals in an unseen breeze. You think about how, in the natural world, flowers open because of sunlight too. Petals respond to warmth, to circadian rhythms tied to the rise and fall of the sun. In the same way, the glass bloom seemed to wait for you, not only for your touch, but for your presence, for the warmth of attention. Science tells us that observation changes things. Photons of light striking a particle reveal its position, yet in doing so, they alter its motion. To look is to change, perhaps to touch, too, is to set free. The guardian rests beside you, folding its wings. Its glow dims, but does not disappear. It is like the afterimage left in your eyes when you close them against the brightness of the sun. The warmth that spreads through the garden is not only emotional, but scientific too. Glass, when it breaks into fragments, releases energy stored in its strained bonds. Light, when it is scattered, fills dark spaces. And memories, when unsealed, make even silent places feel alive again. You wonder if the garden has always had guardian spirits that embody the science of its being. Perhaps the creature is not merely a guide, but the living metaphor of prisms and glass. Its body is made of science, its wings of physics, its glow of human awe. Yet, in this quiet moment, it feels more like a companion than a concept, more like a friend who helps you see what you might not have noticed otherwise. The palace walls, no longer whispering, only silence, now carry the echoes of laughter set free. You imagine the sound bouncing softly through the corridors, as light bounces inside glass, refracted and reflected until it emerges elsewhere, transformed. The warmth you feel is not just in the air, but in your chest, in the quiet realization that you are part of this cycle of release and renewal. Still, one question lingers as you sit among the shimmering fragments. If the guardian of glass has guided you to unlock this bloom, what lies beyond it? If this was but one flower, one secret, what else might the palace hold bend its quiet doors within its silent halls? The guardian tilts its head again, as if it has heard the question you did not speak aloud. Its prism wings lift, scattering one last rainbow arc across the sky of the garden. Without words, it turns toward the farthest wall, where a doorway waits, shadowed yet inviting. And as you rise to follow, you realize that silence itself may be the next companion, carrying its own truths, waiting to be understood. And so you walk toward the waiting doorway, the warmth of scattered laughter, still lingering in the air, wondering what silence will reveal when it is finally allowed to speak. A kingdom awakened. You step again into the glass garden, but it no longer greets you with stillness alone. Where once silence pressed like a heavy veil, now a shimmer of warmth lingers in the air. The flowers, delicate prisms of crystal, lean ever so slightly toward your presence, as if they recognize you. Of belonging, Elara notices it too. She pauses at the archway, bare feet brushing against the cool floor, and draws a slow breath. The scent is not of flowers, for these blooms hold no petals, no pollen, no earthly fragrance. Yet she imagines that if glass could breathe, it would carry a smell like clean rain on stone, or like the first frost dissolving at dawn. She has learned that this garden, once thought silent, is not silent at all. Its voice lies in light itself, and light, though gentle, is never still. It vibrates, it hums, it moves with a rhythm that is both ancient and endlessly new. You remember that light travels as both wave and particle, a duality that science once struggled to name but has now come to accept. Vast space before arriving here. Some beams may be as old as stars long faded, their light still whispering long after their sources are gone. Elara walks slowly between the blooms, her hand brushing a stem that should have been brittle but somehow feels alive. The guardian had shown her that fragility is not weakness. In ancient sands, humans once discovered how heat could coax sand grains into translucence. What began as accident became art, and what became art grew into science. Vessels, windows, lens each carried stories of transformation, and now, here in the palace, those same truths whisper again. A fragile bloom becomes a guardian of memory. A transparent surface becomes a mirror of resilience. Elara begins to visit daily. Sometimes she comes alone, her steps quiet, her thoughts soft as drifting leaves. Sometimes she arrives with other musicians' friend you follow curiously, uncertain at first if the garden is meant for them. But the moment they step inside, something shifts in their faces. They too see the rainbows scatter. They too feel the hush of welcome. Soon, laughter returns, threading itself between glass stems. Your body, like the crystals, vibrates when sound passes through it. A giggle, a chuckle, a joyous burst are not only emotions but physical waves, pressing lightly into the chest, rippling outward into the world. The palace walls, once aching with emptiness, now hold those vibrations and return them like echoes of belonging. Elara notices how light and sound blend here. A friend's laughter catches the edge of a crystal bloom, and the glass trembles, scattering not only rainbows, but a faint, chiming note. It reminds you of wind chimes in summer, or the way a struck glass can sing. The science of resonance explains it. When vibrations match the natural frequency of an object, that object begins to sing along. The garden, it seems, has always been waiting for voices to awaken it. Days stretch into weeks. The princess discovers new patterns in the garden, things she had not noticed before. The blooms seem to lean in subtle arcs, almost as if arranged by some hidden geometry. Circles nest within circles, spirals unfurl, angles repeat. You realize this is no accidentature itself, often follows such secret mathematics. The spirals echo the golden ratio. The angles mimic crystalline lattice. In snowflakes, in seashells, in the arrangement of galaxis geometry is the silent architect. The glass flowers, though crafted, resonate with those same hidden truths. Perhaps the artisans who built them knew, or perhaps they simply followed intuition. Either way, the result feels inevitable. A harmony of form and light, as Elara kneels by the largest blooms, one that had once held trapped laughter. She traces her fingers across its surface. It shimmers at her touch, no longer shattering, but steady. She understands now that breaking had not been destruction, but release. Cracking a rock unveils fossils of forgotten lives. Even glass, when fractured, shows lines of force that reveal its history of pressure and time. And so, fragility becomes a teacher. To care for the delicate is to witness its strength. To approach with gentleness is to be rewarded with resilience. The garden is no longer lonely. It hums with memory, with sound, with shifting light. The palace itself, responge walls gleam. A little brighter, the air carries warmth, even in winter. People begin to gather here in the evenings, drawn to the luminous calm. Musicians play soft notes, and the glass blooms shimmer in reply, scattering prisms like blessings. You feel it, too, even as you listen, even as your eyelids grow heavier. You imagine yourself there bathed in colored light, hearing laughter ripple like water, sensing the hum of resonance through stone. It is not just Elara's awakening, but your own. You begin to see that even the quietest spaces can be transformed when touched with care, and still questions linger. The garden, though awake, seems to hold further mysteries. If its flowers bend light so delicately, could they also bend time? Could memory itself be stored within their fragile stems? Elara wonders too. She senses that this place, for all its beauty, is not only a garden, but a map pointing her toward something deeper. The kingdom awakens with her. They walk differently, shoulders eased, voices less hurried. It is as if the entire realm has remembered what it had once forgotten, that beauty is not ornament but nourishment, not distraction but connection. As twilight gathers outside the glass walls, the blooms catch the fading sun one last time before dusk. Rainbows flicker and dissolve. A hush settles, not empty but full, like a deep breath drawn in before the next gentle exhale. Elara stands at the threshold, hand resting on the arch, her heart quiet but expectant. She feels there is more to learn, more to discover, as though the guardian of light has only shown her the first page of a greater story. And in that stillness, you too begin to wonder if light can awaken glass and laughter can awaken silence. What else waits quietly for its own awakening? The question lingers like a star, not yet risen, soft, patient, waiting, guiding you toward the next unfolding mystery. And so the garden awakens with every gentle touch, every quiet heart. Beauty blooms, laughter returns, and silence transforms into light. Rest now as the magic lingers softly until the next visit to the princess and her glass garden.